Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, Legendary African Leopards, presented by Richard D. Gouveia. Richard has been guiding for NatHab across Africa since 2015, and today he's joining us from his home in South Africa. Thanks for being with us today, Richard. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kendall, and howdy to all of you folks on the other side of the world. I hope you're enjoying some summertime. It's pretty cold here in Johannesburg, South Africa. My level of cold is obviously not the same as what you guys are used to, but it's pretty fresh. As you can see, I'm bundled up and still got my NatHab puffy on. But I'm really excited today to talk to you guys about leopards. And before I even move on to this, I have to tell you that this, by far, is my favorite animal on the planet. So I'm really excited about this. There is so much information that can be given that there might not be enough time for all of it, but please in the Q&A, if you guys can ask lots of questions. So this is me. I've been guiding for almost 13 years now. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see me with a leopard over there. And I started guiding in a place called Sabi, and it's in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, and it's an incredible place. Leopard densities, probably the best in the world, and leopard viewing, very much the best in the world. And I've been guiding for NatHab for almost 6 years now, as Kendall was saying, since 2015, and I have been loving the company, and I get to go to Uganda, Rwanda, Botswana, South Africa, and Madagascar. So some really cool places. But to start everything off, we've got to start at the beginning of how leopards came about. So basically, if you listen to some of the lion chat that I did about 10 days ago, they come in the same sort of space. And what I want to highlight to you with these two breakdowns here is the top one, made up in 2006 by Johnson. The DNA studies actually changed between 2006 to 2010, that the jaguar and leopard were moved around. So effectively, all of the cats descended from a common ancestor who was called Proalurus lemonensis, which basically means first cat. And this guy came about 25 million years ago. And he was just larger than a domestic cat, had a long tail, and had sharp semi-retractable claws. And some studies even suggest that it wasn't just the forefather to the cats, but it also was for the mongooses, civets, and hyenas too. So there's a lot of contrasting stuff there. But effectively, it gave rise to 4 species of cat to cougar-sized felids as it spread across the globe from its origins in Eurasia. Now, one of these subgroups survived to become the cats of today, all 44 species, big and small. Now, the results of phylogenetic studies based on DNA analysis showed that the last common ancestor of the Panther and Neofelis genera is thought to have lived about 6.3 million years ago. So Neofelis actually split from Panthera about 8.66 million years ago. And within Panthera, then, this then split up, as you can see, into tiger, which diverged about 6.5 million years ago, and the snow leopard then about 4.6 million years ago, and then our leopard at 4.3 million years ago. But what I'm really trying to highlight here, besides all the scientific jargon, is how DNA and how science has progressed so much that in 4 years, we've changed our classification of how the evolution of leopards came about. So how far do they spread? Like we said, they started off in Eurasia, and you can see the gray areas, the dark gray areas are the areas that they covered previously. In the dark gray areas, these are the areas in which they are extinct. It is thought that from 1900 to over a century to 2000, the numbers have dropped from around 800,000 individuals to around 80,000 individuals left on the planet. Your green areas, the dark green areas, are where they are still found. The light green areas is a possible presence, and the orange is possibly extinct. But you can see how broad their area is. They are the most successful of all of the large cats. They have spread everywhere. They can go through many, many, many different habitats, from jungles through deserts, through savanna, and obviously savanna is something that we're pretty used to. So our idea about leopards is one of these guys live in trees. It's the archetypal photo of a leopard, the archetypal thought process. Whenever I see guests and guests want to see a leopard, they want to see it in a tree. But the truth of the matter is leopards spend not all that much time in trees. Most of their time is found slinking through the undergrowth, using those spots, what we call rosettes. And if you look at them, they're called rosettes because they look like little roses. And they are circular in nature, and these spots form these little perfect roses all over them. Now, when you look at a photo like this or like that, it is incredible to think that these guys even blend in. They are so astutely beautiful in their coloration, in their markings and everything. But I can assure you, I have been on foot tracking these guys, and the thing is right next to you. When I say right next to you, about 2 meters away from you, and you cannot see it in the grass. What those spots do is break up the body line. It breaks everything up. Even around the eyes, you will notice that there's black lines around the eyes. And if you look at all of the antelope species around Africa, all of the cats, they all have lines around eyes. Eyes are our focus point. So even when I'm thinking about photography, I want eyes in focus. If you can break an eye up, it separates the eye from the body, making it difficult to put the whole pattern together. So this camouflage is a very, very important part of it. They are stealthy forest hunting creatures. They are ambush predators that need to get within probably about 9 feet before they launch a charge. But we'll get into that in a little bit. They love rocky habitats. They love forests because it's nice and dense and thick. But their preference is always in these areas, and often around places where you get smaller prey because their diet range is so big. This is a photo of Cape Town, and you might wonder why the hell did he put a photo of Cape Town in a picture of leopards. But if you have visited Southern Africa and you have gone to the winelands around Cape Town, there are a numerous amount of Cape leopards that live in these areas. And because of the mountain ranges and their inaccessibility to people, they have been able to live in these areas without competition to people. But they're much smaller than our traditional leopards. These guys will probably, a big female will probably weigh about 30 pounds, 35 pounds. So she's pretty small, and a big male will probably be around 60 pounds. They've also adapted to living within cities. And India is a great example. I'm going to jump back to this map. And if you look around India, look at the amount of dark gray that is around India, and then the dark green where they are extant and still living. Where there are 1.1 billion people on the planet, you can be assured that there will be some form of human-animal conflict. And because of that, these leopards at night will slink around the cities. And this great photo by Steve Winter, who does a lot of photography for National Geographic, photographed this. And the biggest thing is that when you look at leopards and India, there are a lot of incredible stories of man-eaters that live in and around these cities. There's one leopard that is touted to killing and eating over 250 people. And this was on the back of a cholera outbreak. So, you know, you got these weak periods where maybe the leopard just took advantage of these things, but they're highly adaptable, and they're very easily adapted to different situations. And not only are they adapted to going around cities, you can imagine that when we're in lodges around Africa, they love coming into lodges. Lodges are a great place. Often the gardens are watered, which is fantastic because it attracts small antelope that live inside there in this beautiful thought of safety. So one day I remember we had a leopard that hung around a camp called Little Bush Camp, and she was called the Little Bush Female just because of where she lived. Everything was either named, the names of the leopards were because of a feature on them or a territory that they held, and we used this for scientific purposes. But Little Bush Female hung around, and she was a terrorist. She would terrorize us all the time. I remember one day walking and looking to my side, and out from under the bottom of the eave of the thatch roof, I could just see this little head poking out, having a look at me. And that's your one thing you just don't want to come close to. She somehow had developed this nastiness towards people. Where most leopards will run away, she would charge. And for many occasions, I had to wear numerous pairs of underpants and keep spares in the lodge just in case. It was hair-raising. But I remember one morning distinctly going out at Little Bush Camp, and we were walking, and every morning you go do wake-up call. So you go to the lodge, you go to each room, you knock on the door, you say good morning, wake-up call, and you move off to the next one. On my way there, I saw these strange marks on the gravel next to the path, and I cut across, and it looked distinctly like a drag mark. So when a leopard kills something, it'll grab it by the throat, throttle it, and then move it to a safe place. Well, we saw these things going. Yes, there's leopard pug marks next to it. There's a leopard in the camp. So go knock on the door, say good morning, wake up call, and then say to everyone, guys, just stay in your room. There is a leopard in camp, or we think there might be a leopard in camp. We just need to check. We'll come fetch you. So I go and have a look, and we walk around, and in one of the outdoor showers, there is a bushbuck lying half eaten outside somebody's door. So you have all these incredible interactions that go on in the camp. Now, leopards are solitary cats. The only time you will find leopards together is when they're mating, or when they're cubs, or they're fighting. It is very seldom that you will find more than one leopard together. And when we talked about lions 10 days ago, it was a fascinating discussion because lions are the only true pride or group cat species that will actually form a group bond and stick together in its greater sense. Leopards stick to themselves. And this solitary nature has allowed them to do a lot of things, and that's why they try and hide and keep their stealthiness going. They're also incredibly well adapted to climbing trees. Now, a female on average will weigh between 30 to around 80 pounds, which again, most of you will sit and go, geez, that's not that big. And a male will weigh between 80 to around 160 pounds. So again, not that big. You would expect something that powerful that does as much killing as what it does to be bigger. But when you look at muscle density and muscle fibers, their muscle density is 8 times, they have 8 times more muscle fibers than we do, which means effectively that animal, let's call the male 100 pounds just for sake, he is as strong as an 800-pound muscle building man. So their power to weight ratio is intense. It is incredible. And I have seen them do some amazing things. I remember one sighting where we had a male leopard pull down a male impala. Now, a male impala will weigh also around 130, 140 pounds. So his weight rivaled. And they're often trailed by hyenas. And this guy just pulled this thing down, and a hyena came rushing out of the bush to steal it. And he just ran with it in his jaws, and he launched 9 feet into the air with this impala stuck in his mouth, and the hyena couldn't follow. And he just got into the tree, climbed up into the tree, and hoisted it up. Now, the reason there's an old Shangaan myth. Now, the Shangaans are one of the African tribes around here. They're very closely related to the Zulu tribe. And the Shangaans have a myth about this whole thing. And it is believed that leopard and hyena and jackal used to do hunting and share food. So whenever leopard killed something, he would share a little bit with hyena and share a little bit with jackal, and all was well. But one day, leopard was out on a hunt and he hurt his foot. So he went to jackal and he said, Jackal, listen, my friend, I have hurt my paw. Please, could you do the hunting tonight? Because I don't think I can. I just need a day to recover. And jackal said, nah, I think I'll just go steal something from Mr. Lion over there or from the cheetah. And then he went to hyena and he said the same thing. Listen, hyena, my paw's sore today. Please, will you just do the hunting for tonight? I'll get you back the next day. I just need a day to recover. He said no. So from that day onwards, leopard pulled his kills into trees so that he didn't have to share it with the hyena and the leopard, the hyena and the jackal ever again. So these beautiful mythical stories that come out of it. But where we look at climbing trees, lions also climb trees. A lot of cats are adapted to doing that. Lions are just really bad at climbing out of trees. What a leopard has is a lockable wrist, which when it comes down, it can come down head forward without its wrist flopping over. So this gives it an edge to be able to get up and down. And obviously its weight and its size mean it's a little bit more nimble to be able to do that. The other very cool thing that happens within leopards, we've all heard of a black panther. Now, a black panther is effectively a black leopard or a black jaguar, but it is what we call melanism. And about 11% of all leopards are black leopards. This is not one of my images, unfortunately. I've never seen a black leopard. The day that I do, I will do a double somersault out of the vehicle, and I'll probably scare it away because I'll be so excited. But nonetheless, what it is melanism, just like leucism, which is the opposite, where things come out white, and in a leopard's term, actually come out gold. They have this unbelievably gold color that comes through to them. This recessive gene, you need 2 leopards to mate who have the recessive gene. And within that, there's then a 25% chance of a cub coming out as a black leopard. So it's a very rare form. There's a couple of forests in India that are very well known for black leopard, and there's spaces in Tanzania that are also very well known for black leopard or high levels of melanism within the area. And those genetics just proliferated around those areas. So because of the way this all works, leopards are very territorial creatures, solitary but territorial. And they are nocturnal creatures, but not so much always active through the night. Because something says it's nocturnal doesn't mean that it spends its life walking around at night. In Southern Africa now, it's winter. Your chances of seeing a leopard in the daytime are far greater than at night. One, because it's easier to spot them during the day, excuse the pun on spot, but at night you're using a spotlight like this photo would have been. So if he's not looking at you, you're not going to see how it works. And what they have very well adapted eyes, and they've got this tapetum lucidum, which sits on the back, which is a mirror-like layer. So the light comes in, hits that layer, and then bounces back out, which gives the animal a second shot at using that light. The other thing that the eyes are structured towards is our eyes have rod and cone cells. Both, so does the leopard, but rod cells are light sensitive and motion sensitive cells, and cone cells are definition vision and color vision. What they've done is they've lost some of their ability to see color in order to see better at night, to get an advantage on their prey, and to pick up motion. If you think about a cat, your domestic house cat, if you put a ball of yarn in front of him and just leave it there, he's going to look at it. If you roll it past him, he's going to pounce on it. They are triggered to work with movement, and that's those rod cells working. In our eyes, just off the edges where our peripheral vision sits, we're able to pick up, we have more rod cells than those points because it's a defensive mechanism. But our cone cells are all sitting in front, and what it does is it means that we can see really well, most of us at an arm's length, but as we get older, our arms become a little bit shorter and we have to stretch a little for that. So these nocturnal creatures preferably move around in what we call a crepuscular way. So it's actually more dusk and dawn to avoid competition from lions and hyenas. Lions and hyenas are both bigger than leopards are, which means that they will be outcompeted by these guys. So if a leopard makes a kill, a hyena will try and get in there and steal it from him. Now, within the territory, there's certain ways that this gets passed on. So this female leopard was marking territory. Her tail is up, she'll urinate against a tree and then move along. Here, this female, you will see her rubbing her face against the tree. And what this does is she has glands around her face, and while she's rubbing like that, she's actually spreading scent. So when you see a cat coming to you and rubbing its head on you, it's not just wanting love, it's saying it's marking territory, saying to any other cat that you belong to it. So think twice, think twice the next time your cat is rubbing up against you. So she's rubbing up her face. They've also got glands between the toes called interdigital glands, and you'll often see them scraping against things. That's not just to sharpen the claws, it's also to spread scent with that point. And then again, this female urinating, and you'll see her pose where she looks a little like she's bent her knees a bit, and that's how they'll push that urine out and spray. And what's amazing about leopard urine is it smells like buttered popcorn. That is no word of a lie. It smells like buttered popcorn. You drive past it, you go, where's the popcorn? It's an amazing scent to get in your nose. Now, part of it too, while you're scent marking, is scent can only be found when you are there at the point that was scent marked. Audio travels much further. So this is a male leopard calling. This is a rasping call that he makes, this very deep guttural noise. I'm going to play it again. And it sounds like a woodcutter, like somebody sawing on wood. And obviously audio then travels a lot further, which then sends out signals. This guy was actually calling for a female, and I'm going to get into the story because this happened last week. It was pretty damn incredible. Now, when they get to a point of scent, they will then use a gland called the organ of Jacobson that sits on the palate. And this organ, when they snarl like that, and you can see her baring her teeth, that actually opens the gland, allows scent inside, and it allows them to tell the age, the sex, the sexual status, the hormone levels, the condition of the individual, and which individual it is, all within the scent of urine and dung. And that gives them a good sense of what's going on. So this female was moving around, marking territory, smelling, and what happens with leopard territories is they overlap. They're not always completely separate. It's not like this is my line, you'd stay that side, I'll stay this side, and we go along. I've taken a map from a reserve in the Sabi Sands called Londolozi, and these are 3 male leopards. And you can see the Anderson male on the top left in the gray and the Flat Rock male in the bottom left. Their territories actually overlap, and then the Senegal bush male in the green overlaps slightly with both of those males, but not as much as the Anderson male and the Flat Rock male. So within the territorial bounds of a male, you can expect anything between 1 to 3 females, 3 to 4 females, sorry, within that area. So I'm going to go back to that. Look at how the Anderson male has 3 females within his territory. And the Flat Rock male has these 2. Now, there's obviously some others in different areas. I'm just using this as a hypothetical, but these guys cross over. And it is a big part of their lives is this territory. Now, when I was at Sabi, I was privy to a lot of time there, and you get to know individuals. Like I was saying, the little bush female, there was Notton's female, there was White Dam female, there was Warthog Wallow female, Lisbon female. There were so many different females moving around and different males. Now, a big male like the Senegal bush male has a massive territory. Flat Rock male had a massive territory. We had a male called Sand River, and he literally had about 6 females within his territory. He was a bus. He was amazing. But this becomes a contentious thing, because now if you have these things crossing over, the female, who does she mate with? Because when it comes to mating, the males will not accept a cub that is not theirs. Infanticide is the cause of about 40% of all cub deaths is caused by other male leopards. The others are then lost to other predators like hyenas, lions, jackals, baboons, things like that. So you have this overlap. And when these guys come together, like I was saying, they're solitary creatures. So when they come together, it's not a pretty sight. They're not used to company. This is how I felt when I went out of lockdown for the first time, because I didn't know how to interact with anyone. That noise is enough to raise hairs on the back of your neck very quickly, especially when it's aimed at you. What was happening in this interaction is that the female was coming in to mate with the male, and he's now called her, she's responded, they've all got together, she's an estrus, he picked it up through that flehmen grimace, the bearing of the teeth is called the flehmen grimace, F-L-E-H-M-E-N, flehmen, and he's picked up that she's an estrus, and he's moved in towards her, but when he gets there, he doesn't want anything to do with it. It's a bit weird. And then she's the one that then incites and starts the mating process. So this was, again, one of the videos from last week. You can see her coming in, and she waves her butt in his face and does this little arch backwards to say, okay, I'm ready. And he's ready to go, but this was a bit of a tense situation. So she'll come past and actually rub up against him, and there'll be a lot of growling, and she'll present herself to him. And this is what we call lordosis, is the act of her submitting and showing her backside to him so that he can mate with her. But mating is crazy. Mating is intense. Mating lasts all of about 10 seconds. This is not an exciting time for any leopard, especially not the female, because he has barbs on his penis. And when he retracts, it hurts her. And the whole reason for this is so that it stimulates ovulation. If ovulation, she won't just ovulate. Humans, we go through menstruation where lady will produce an egg. If the egg isn't fertilized, it will be discarded and removed. In nature, things are so tough with these animals. For them to walk around and lose energy like that is not worth their while. So what she will do is she will come into season in terms of her hormones are correct, and she needs the stimulation from his penis to ovulate. And she has the control over how much she ovulates, whether she wants to ovulate, put out 1 egg, 2 eggs, 3 eggs, and they can have up to 6 babies. She controls that, all based on one, her age, obviously. The younger she is, the more set her territory is. All of that plays a role. And the male plays a big role. If the male is solid and she's in the middle of a male's territory and he's really strong and there's no other males coming in and she feels safe, she will produce more eggs. If she's not feeling that way or has lost a few cubs, she might choose to only have and hedge her bets on 1 cub, which if she loses 1 cub, that's fine. And so this goes along. And when this mating occurs, you have this intense rivalry where he's now going and he bites down on her neck and he makes this, It's this crazy noise, but he bites down on her neck, just like when a kitten is picked up by its mother. There's a nerve that runs through the neck, which when pinched makes the body go limp, which he's trying to do to try and save himself from getting injured. And he will then do his business and move off. You can see once they pull out, things can get hairy. She wants to kill him. He's cross with her. He goes away and he's just like, okay, I'm done with this. And then she comes back and presents herself again. It's a very confusing situation. So here's a cool situation that happened at one of the moments where the female was trying to get this male to mate with her. He didn't even get a chance. She just wanted to climb in there and get to him. Fortunate for him, he's got the reflexes of a leopard, so he could get out the way. So what happened last week, and it was amazing because it was the first time I'd seen something quite as intense as this. So I was fortunate enough to get out into the bush last week, shooting some workshops for Sony Alpha, some photographic workshops. And I went to Sabi Private Game Reserve, who I have a great relationship with. And I was pretty much the only vehicle out there. It was the most eerie thing because when I worked there, there was always people out, and you know you're going to find stuff because there's 10 other vehicles out and you've got a radio and they find something, they say, I've got it. And so you go. And on this occasion, I was on my own. So off we went, going looking for things. I was fortunate that there were leopard researchers, and I'll speak about this in more depth later on when we talk about conservation. But there were leopard researchers out there, and they were trying to get DNA studies from these guys. And they found a male leopard, the one on the right here. And I went in there, I was very excited. I chased from a long distance away, got down there, found the male. Then they found the female, and then the two of them were calling, and then they got together and they started mating, and life was amazing. I was just in my element. I'm on my own. There's no one else around. Two leopards mating. They're so chilled with me. And so everything was cool. And the next thing, another female flew in and a fight ensued. So here we go. And then they went down into the riverbed after this whole thing and went into a bush. It was mad. The noise was intense. These guys were going at it. Everyone survived. The one female who came in, she slunk off, and then the other female came out. She had a cut on her side, and they went back to normal mating behavior. But it was incredible to see this interaction, and you see the contention, and again you see the boundaries. Two females that are overlapping territories, and the one female, Scotia, who came rushing in, attacked the younger female, who was called Tambuti female, to say, listen, you're in the wrong place. This is my spot. And that becomes a big bit of movement that goes on. Now, within the mating of leopards, like I said, you have these issues where you have cubs. Now, the cub comes out, and I'm going back to the map quickly. So let's say the Anderson male is mating with the Nhlanguleni female, the one in green at the bottom, who has a territory that overlaps the Anderson male and the Flat Rock male. So you can see how this becomes a problem. So what she will do is she will actually go and choose the best suitor, the one that she thinks is the strongest genetics. She will go mate with him first, maybe for 3 days. She will produce as many eggs as what she thinks are necessary. So let's call it 2 for this, and he will get that in. She will then go to the second male, the flat rock male, and then she will mate with him for 2 days, and he will think that his babies are there. But she also has the possibility of having a split litter where 2 of the babies are from the Anderson male and 1 is from the flat rock male, just because of the insemination. The other thing is that they have the ability to do is female leopards have the ability to store sperm inside them for up to 2 weeks. If they do not find a better suitor, they will use the sperm. If they do, they can eject the sperm and then take on the stronger male sperm. So they have this incredible intuition about them that is so far above what we think and what we know. All right, so let's hop through these videos again. So we have the cub. So after this whole craziness has gone down, she's now figured out who her best suitor is. She's had her cubs. They can have anything between 1 and 6 cubs. I've never seen more than 3, and 3 is a stretch. That's incredible. And the 3 that I actually saw got up to the age of about 11 months before one was killed, which is, again, amazing. Most deaths, when you're looking at predatory animals or animals at the top of a food chain, or like an elephant or something that doesn't get killed that often, most of the control, the number control, the population control occurs when they are young. So you can see this little thing is very young. It was about 3 months old. And that's when they start moving with mom. But when they are born, they are between 17 to 20 ounces. They are tiny. They are hairless. They are blind. They are deaf. All they know how to do is sit and shut up while mom goes and hunts and suck on a nipple when she comes back. And like I said, 40% of leopard cubs are killed by male leopards. The rest of the percentage goes across a whole bunch of species, your baboons, snakes. I've seen documents of python eating leopard cubs. Lions will kill leopard cubs. All of the things that might have some competition with them. So your lions, leopards, other leopards, and hyena obviously is a big thing. But these little guys eventually start getting into meat at about 3 months old, where they'll nibble and mom will take them into a tree. They'll walk around with mom. Look how cute that little munchkin is. This was an amazing day. I think I took about 2,000 photographs of this little guy, of which I've used 3, but that's okay. Now, when they're together, mom hides them in some beautiful thick brush. And again, this was another crazy leopard sighting. To see a mother and a cub is so rare. To spend time and watch her groom the thing, and they were no more than about 10 or 11 feet from us at that stage, and they were just so happy. But they were on edge because things were happening, and things were happening around them. She had made a kill. The kill was in a tree. She'd brought the cub through there. But little did she know that the cub's father, fortunately the cub's father, was mating with another female around the corner. So now when they're mating, one thing I alluded to was they mate every 15 minutes for 5 days. It starts really fast at a rate of probably every 2 or 3 minutes that they're going. And then by the end of it, they're really starting to drag out and lose energy, which then takes it down. But we were sitting with these two, and they were in the grass there, and the next thing, the male and the other female came down. Well, this cub scattered up a branch that was no thicker than my freaking finger all the way to the top of this tree, and was dangling precariously like a Christmas ornament at the top, like the Christmas star at the top of a tree. And the 2 females were then growling at one another. The guy didn't care 2 hoots. He just went straight for the food, stole the food and ran off with it. And eventually the other female, who's now driven by evolution to want to not waste this opportunity of estrus, then left the 2 of them alone and went back to the male to carry on mating. And this process goes on for a long time. Life with the mother happens for a long time. If a female cub is there, the cub will probably stick around with the mother for around 12 to 18 months. A male cub will probably be 18 to 24 months. And the reason why the males, and especially in areas like the Sabi Sands, where the population is so dense, you have a lot of male competition. And if he goes off too early, he'll be killed by another male because it's competition. So he sticks with mom for as long as possible. So you have this incredible situation. There was a situation at a reserve in Southern Africa where there was a lot of trophy hunting around this reserve that had been built, and male leopards were being killed off. So every time a male leopard had a cub with a female, he was then shot because of this trophy hunting, and a new male would move in. He would kill the cubs, and the whole process would be repeated. And eventually a law was passed that you couldn't hunt the male leopards. So that hunting was stopped in the area. And it was like the females knew that this had all changed. And what they were doing was they were producing cubs and saying, cubs, you're 6 months old. You're big, old, and ugly enough to look after yourself. And would push them out and go get more, because they knew that there was space and time and opportunity to be able to have these cubs and grow this population. So it was an amazing draw point. I mean, to think that, how do these animals know and feel and intuit that that is the situation that they can move forward to? I love it. It absolutely blows my mind. Now, one of the coolest things, and I told you right in the beginning of this whole thing, leopards are my favorite animal, hands down. It took me 16 years. I was 16 years old when I saw my first leopard, and I started doing safari when I was around 6 years old, and we used to go at least 3 times a year. Leopards are elusive creatures. The first leopard I got to see was at Londolozi. I went to school with one of the owner's children, and he took us there, and the first game drive we saw this leopard in a tree. It was like the clouds had opened and the good Lord showered down angel praises all over me. There were just angels singing everywhere. So when I started working in the Sabi Sands, it was just a whole nother ball game. To be around leopards was amazing. And these 2 cubs were the first 2 cubs I got to see. And they were were born from a female named Nottin's female. Nottin's is another reserve in the area, and she had a whole western sector of that reserve. And these 2 cubs were playful, used to find their den site, and there was always a mission, because with cubs they're moved every 2 to 3 days, so scent doesn't build up around the den site, so hyenas and lions and things like that can't get to them. And they were growing up all good and well, but and they got sort of to a good age, but once they got to about 11 months, a new male came in and started pushing in. His name was Shiangalas, which means the destroyer. And he came in from a reserve next door, got hold of one of the cubs, and unfortunately we watched him kill one of the cubs, but this male still survived, and we started to call him the Salati male. And we found him playing with kills and just having a ball of a time. And as a young leopard, even though you're waiting 2 years before you get freed from, or you get kicked out by your mother, when your mother leaves you alone, you're still going to go and try and catch things. So squirrels, scrub hares, things like that are all on the menu for them. So they learn to hunt on their own very early. And as he grew up, his mother started getting a little bit less than happy with his presence around, and kept on telling him, listen, you need to start getting a job and go find your own food. But he stuck around longer. He was so crazy. This was him hunting rhinos. So you can see him stalking behind the rhino. If you look carefully, you'll see him moving. We'll get a better shot of him. But he's literally 15 feet away from that rhino, not even 12 feet away from that rhino. And she can't see him because she's blind. But she knew he was there, and he kept on running and jumping on the baby rhino's backside. It was the most crazy thing I have ever seen. Here you can see him following the rhino. You'll see in the next shot, he's still following the rhino. This was us following him, following the rhinos. Look at him going. I mean, crazy cat. And then eventually he sees the drongo land, a bird, and he goes running in. The rhinos get spooked, and then the bird lands, and he jumps on the bird. So it was just a crazy situation. Absolutely crazy, crazy situation. But eventually his time would come, and his father would say, it's time for you to leave. Listen to him calling. That's a submission call there, and he's just trying to get away. And this other male was just following him. His dad was just following him around saying, Guy, you're too old now. Get the hell out of my area. And you will see this male even go, and he'll move along, and he marks territory. And you see the young boy, the Salati male, walking in front of him there, moving along. And then in the next shot, you can see him smelling. Now, because of this situation, this male is salivating heavily. As soon as a leopard sees another leopard he doesn't like, they start salivating this heavy white saliva. And you'll see him smelling, and you'll see him do the phlegm grimace that I was talking about, where he'll open there, he's baring his teeth, look at the saliva, and he's testing the hormones, trying to see who this young male is, how old is he, what's his condition, you know, how much of a threat is he. So that guy eventually got kicked out. He became called the day one male in a reserve further north, and he had an incredible territory with an incredible amount of things going on and made lots of babies. So let's talk about hunting. We've heard of a leopard crawl before. Leopards are incredible hunters, silent hunters as they move along. And like I say, ambush predators. They can get to a speed of around 55 miles an hour when they are running. That is insane, absolutely insane. They can cover 100-meter dash in 4 seconds. That's how fast they're moving. And when they bolt, they go. This was a leopard that was hunting an impala. He didn't catch it, but it was just stalking in this open area, and she went, but she missed. This was another one on one of our trips recently where this leopard actually tackled an impala off of a cliff, which was about 30 feet high, and then landed with the kill and then strangled it out. And once they've strangled it out, they need to drag it off into a place for cover. So once it's too big, they will drag it off under a bush, try and feed as much as they can for as quickly as they can to lighten the weight, and then they will hoist it into a tree. Once they've finished hoisting, this was the male bringing it down. This is actually the Senegal bushmale, the green spot that we were looking at on the map. He brought it down because it would be easier to eat that last bit down the bottom. This is him again feeding on another impala. And it's a great place for the mothers to be able to bring their cubs and to feed the cubs in the tree. Now, leopards have an incredibly wide range of prey species that they get a hold of. Everything from things like rats and mice, all the way through to baby giraffe I've seen killed, to eland, which is the largest antelope. So many, many different things. So let's talk conservation, because we're running out of time and I talk too much. I'm so sorry. Conservation is a big thing. There's a lot of research going on in the Sabi Sands, and the researchers that were there were actually calling leopards out. And when they found a leopard, they would dart it with a dart that literally penetrates and bounces out. And what it does is it stores a piece of genetic material that they then can map out the genetics of the leopards to figure out their genetic diversity as they're going along. One of the first projects I was involved in, that a company called Panther, who do a lot of cat research around the world, was to try and mediate trophy hunting, which obviously is a horrendous thing. But how do you stop everyone doing it. You can't just say stop. You have to find a better way. So what they did was, this gentleman, a friend of mine, he worked out that leopard males over 7 years, if they died, the population drop would be slight, and then it would follow the same natural curve as what it would if there were no hunting. If you hunted all leopards, it would just drop off to extinction in no time flat. So what he was trying to do was figure out a way to age leopards to figure it out. So one thing that we looked at was the nose. The darker the nose, the older the leopard. The biggest thing were the ears. The older the leopard, especially the males, their skulls become bigger and their ears actually start to move outwards. If we look at another leopard there, like the little one, you can see how close the ears are together, where his are nicely splayed open. So this was then enforced in a lot of countries to try and maintain the leopard numbers. The other big problem is obviously from hunting for coats. So if you think about it, it's the most persecuted cat in the world. It's extinct in 13 countries and regions, and possibly extinct in 7 more than that. Leopards have vanished from at least 2/3 of the historic range in Africa and 84% of the historic range in Eurasia. They're done for their skins, body parts for ceremonial regalia, conflict with people, and rampant bushmeat poaching, where you have this problem where you have snares and things catching the animals and killing the animals, and then obviously poorly managed trophy hunting. So they are critically endangered in areas like Sri Lanka and the Middle East, and they're vulnerable in Africa. But if you consider that in Southern Africa, as many as 800 leopards are killed each year for their furs, with fewer than 5,000 leopards remaining in South Africa alone, this illegal killing poses a significant threat to their survival. So we have to do a backwards and forwards. In South Africa, there is a tribe called the Shembe tribe, or a religion called the Shembe religion amongst the Zulu people. And there is a video of around 20,000 of them walking, all wearing leopard print. And it's all real leopard fur. So there's been a major drive by this organization, Panther, to sponsor fake furs, faux furs for these guys so that they stop killing the leopards. And it's an amazing initiative that has been driven throughout the ages, or through the last couple of years. And on that, I want to thank you, and I'm happy to answer some questions. And if we have to go on a little longer, Kendall, I'm also happy to stay on a few minutes longer for some questions.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Thank you so much. Before we start the Q&A, I just want to remind folks that you can submit your questions for Richard via the questions field in your control panel. Okay, we have a few people who really want to know what lens you use when you're photographing these leopards, particularly for the close-up shots.
It all depends. I have recently changed over to Sony, and a lot of those are taken on 100 400, 4.5 to 5.6, or 400 2.8, depending on where I am and how I can use the things. So yeah, that's pretty much the setup. There are some really cool wildlife workshops going to come up, so look out on Sony Alpha SA, and you'll be able to follow those too.
Great. And what's the best time of year and location to watch leopards?
Okay, so there are a few places around the world that are really well known for it. The best time is always winter. The reason is like in this image, you can see everything is very open. Things have died off. There's space to see through the bush. So winter is a great time, which is obviously your summertime. So now would be the best time. And places, Zambia is a great place, and Southern Africa, the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, the Greater Sabi Sands. Our hidden Botswana and South Africa trip is ridiculous. On one trip last year, we saw 10 different leopards, 10 different individuals on one trip in 10 days.
Amazing. How much does an average leopard eat in a day?
So what you're looking at is they need about 10% of their body weight a day. So if you consider a big male of 150 pounds, needs about 15 pounds a day of meat, but he can gorge himself. So if he kills something, he will gorge himself for 3 or 4 days, and he has enough food to remain in that current condition without losing condition for another 3 or 4 days, depending on how much he eats.
And what's the average lifespan of a leopard?
So males will be much shorter. So you're looking at about 10 to 12 years for males, specifically because once they've been kicked out of their territory, they're now moving through other male territories who don't want them there because they're competition. So they'll be killed off earlier. And then what you would do is the females can get up to about 20 years of age. Some have gone older than that, but you're probably looking at about 18 years would be a good lifespan for a female leopard.
There are quite a few people who were pretty intrigued by your footage and shots of the leopards near the safari vehicles, and people had a lot of questions about why don't they jump into the vehicles, and how close can you get safely to the leopards while you're in the vehicles?
Spectacular question, really good, because these areas have worked out over years. They've done a process that's called habituation, where we get the animals accustomed to the vehicle. So now the last week, we were with a leopard who had a new cub. And there were only 2 vehicles out, but one of the ladies was in the vehicle in a sighting. And when I arrived, what we did was we got in one vehicle and moved in. And the whole point of it was to stick with that female and the cub for as long as possible, because the cub gets used to the vehicle. And because mom's relaxed with the vehicle, the cub becomes relaxed with the vehicle. So in places like the Sabi Sands, literally I have had leopards underneath the vehicle hunting, using the vehicle as cover. So they will get right up to you. I remember one situation with our 2 little cubs that I was showing you earlier, that my first 2 little cubs that I saw, one of them being the Salati male. They were so comfortable with the vehicle, they would run up the runners of the vehicle up the sides. And we had to eventually take the step of giving a little tap on the side of the vehicle to say, listen, that's your space, this is ours, you stay there. They don't see us as food, they just see us as another animal that is part of their lives that has no impact on them whatsoever. And it is only through people, the rangers and guides that went before, that treated them with the respect that they did, that allowed them to become that habituated, that relaxed around us, to carry on with their natural behavior.
Great. Do leopards have unique patterns, much like other wildlife do, like tigers or zebras?
100% different. Every leopard has different spot patterns. What we use, I'm going to go back to like this one here. On just above his whisker line, you can see 2 spots. They often use the spot patterns there. So he'll be a 3-2 male. He's got 2 on the left and 3 on the right. So he's a 3-2 male. This guy here, you can see on the right, he's got 3-3, and then he's got a scar on his right-hand side, or on our left. You can see a scar running through. So each one of those spot patterns around the eyes, the face, the 2-band necklace that they have will be unique to every single leopard. Will have a different one. She's a 3-3 female, but if you look around her right eye on the left-hand side of the picture, you'll see a little triangle, which is a very distinctive mark for that female. So that's how we would recognize and identify the different leopards.
Great. And there are some questions about female reproduction and cubs. For how long can a female reproduce, and how long is the gestation period?
Cool. So the gestation is 110 days, and the females, all animals, barring humans and certain whale species, will mate until they die. We have what we call the grandmother effect between us and certain whale species, where we go through a menopause where we stop producing, and the elders are actually responsible for the upbringing of those young. For leopards, it is a case of they will try and mate as often as possible. If a leopard has her cubs and a male kills them, or the cubs die for some reason, within a month, she will fall back into estrus and try again. This is a constant thing. It is survive long enough to breed. That is the rule of nature, and it exists for leopards too.
And how do leopard paw prints differ from other prints of other big cats?
So the leopards and lions are identical. They have a three little, on the pad itself, on the proximal pad, there are three indents that happen there. It creates this sort of W that or three things. And then the dogs and hyenas have two indents at the bottom. So these two little semicircles at the bottom. You will also notice that the dogs, cheetah, and hyenas have no retractable claws. So their claws you will be able to see, where lions and leopards have retractable claws. So you will just see the toes, and lion paw prints are just that much bigger. I mean, a big male lion's paw print is about the size of my hand, where a leopard will probably be about the size of the palm of my hand.
Great. That's the last question we have time for today. So I'll hand it back over to you, Richard, for some closing comments.
Guys, thank you so much for listening in and all the great questions and everything. If you have any other questions, please just hit me up on social media. I'm happy to answer them. It's been a thrill. Thank you, NatHab, for hosting these. I love sharing the information with all of you guys, and stay safe, and I hope to see you out in traveling very soon.
Thank you so much, Richard, and my thanks to everyone who joined us today. Be sure to join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. It's going to be a lesson in macro photography from Court Whalen. We did record today's presentation, so we'll get that replay out to you soon. And with that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Kendall. Thanks, guys. Bye.